This may surprise you, but Mario Lemieux, the soft-spoken superstar who carried the Pittsburgh Penguins to glory, had his own list of rivals and frustrations. On the ice, he looked untouchable, a player with size, skill, and grace that few could ever match. But behind the highlight reels, Lemieux dealt with constant battles that tested his patience and even pushed him to the edge of walking away from the game. If these clashes hadn't happened, hockey might have lost one of its greatest legends far too soon. Imagine a world without his miracle comeback seasons, without his cup runs, without the inspiration he gave to fans worldwide. That almost happened, because as brilliant as Lemieux was, there were certain players and even officials that drove him crazy. And today, we're diving into the 6 names Mario Lemieux hated the most. If you love deep dives into hockey legends like Mario Lemieux, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. You don't want to miss the shocking stories behind the greatest players in NHL history. Number 6, Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky was called the Great One for a reason. He shattered records, dominated the NHL, and became a household name in ways few players ever have. For Mario Lemieux, facing Gretzky or even being compared to him was never personal hatred, and in fact Lemieux respected Gretzky's talent deeply, but that respect came with a side of frustration. From early in his career, the media constantly compared the two, often framing Lemieux as the second best player, even when his numbers and skill were just as impressive. That constant comparison created pressure and a quiet sense of rivalry that followed Lemieux for much of his career. Their matchups on the ice were rare, but always intense. One memorable moment came during the 1987 Canada Cup. Both represented Team Canada against the Soviet Union, one of the most legendary international matchups in hockey history. In the final game, Lemieux scored the winning goal, assisted by Gretzky. It was a perfect example of how these two superstars could combine brilliance, yet still feel the undercurrent of competitive tension. Off the ice, media narratives often exaggerated that tension. Headlines would pit Lemieux against Gretzky, creating a story of rivalry that sometimes didn't exist in the locker room. But for Lemieux, it was impossible to escape. Every achievement was measured against Gretzky's legacy, and every record he chased came with whispers of comparison. Despite this, there were moments of mutual admiration. Lemieux often spoke about how Gretzky pushed him to become better, even if indirectly. Facing someone so dominant made Lemieux work harder in practice, focus more in games, and refine his own style to stand out. Even small things like watching Gretzky's positioning, his way of reading the play, and his ability to make split-second decisions became lessons for Lemieux. It's a strange kind of tension. You respect the person so much that their shadow drives you to improve, but at the same time, it can stir frustration when the world always measures you against them. For fans, this dynamic gave us incredible moments. The rare occasions when the two legends shared the ice, the memorable passes, and the clutch plays. For Lemieux, it was a mix of admiration, frustration, and motivation. He didn't hate Gretzky, but the rivalry shaped him, pushed him, and added another layer to his story. It's a reminder that even among legends, the hardest battles can sometimes be against perception, comparison, and the constant pressure to prove yourself. Number 5, Claude Lemieux. Claude Lemieux was one of the most notorious agitators in NHL history. He had a reputation for getting under the skin of opponents, using every dirty trick in the book, and never shying away from physical play. For Mario Lemieux, facing Claude on the ice was never enjoyable. While Mario never publicly singled Claude out in interviews, anyone who watched their matchups closely could see the frustration. Claude had a way of turning simple plays into chaotic moments, hitting players late, targeting knees, and making sure the referee always seemed just a step behind. For a player like Mario, who relied on skill, speed, and precision, dealing with that kind of aggressive, unpredictable play could be maddening. One of the most infamous moments of Claude's career came during the 1996 Western Conference Finals, when the Colorado Avalanche faced the Detroit Red Wings. Claude delivered a vicious hit from behind on Chris Draper, causing serious injuries and sparking one of the most intense rivalries in NHL history. While Mario wasn't directly involved in that incident, the aggressive style Claude embodied was well known throughout the league. It posed a mental challenge to players who preferred a more controlled game. It wasn't just the hits, it was the mental pressure. Knowing Claude would be looking to disrupt, provoke, and frustrate made every shift more stressful. For a perfectionist like Mario, that kind of annoyance could feel like an uphill battle. Beyond the hits, Claude's reputation alone was enough to irritate Mario. In every arena, in every game, players like Claude became the symbol of chaos on ice. The ones who could make a clean play turn into a dangerous moment. Mario, who valued control and composure, had little patience for that. Yet, despite the tension, he never lost focus. He continued to dominate, scoring goals, setting up plays, and keeping his team in control, even when Claude tried to throw him off his rhythm. Claude Lemieux wasn't hated in the personal sense like some referees or overbearing media figures, but on the ice he represented a type of player that Mario couldn't stand. aggressive, disruptive, and reckless. He was the kind of opponent who forced Mario to dig deeper, to stay sharper, and to fight both physically and mentally for every advantage. It was annoyance, irritation, and relentless provocation, but it left its mark. Facing Claude Lemieux wasn't fun. It was a test, one that Mario passed over and over, proving that even the most aggravating rivals couldn't stop his greatness. Number 4. Darius Kasparaitis. Darius Kasparaitis was the kind of defenseman every star forward dreaded facing. He wasn't flashy, he didn't score highlight reel goals, and he rarely made the headlines for skill. But what he did excel at was one thing: making life miserable for the best players on the ice. Clutching, grabbing, interfering, Kasparaitis did it all, and he did it relentlessly. For Mario Lemieux, who thrived on space, timing, and precision, dealing with a player like Kasparaitis was a constant challenge. Every time Mario touched the puck, he knew Kasparaitis would be there, shadowing him, bumping him, trying to throw him off his rhythm. Kasparaitis' style was as much mental as it was physical. He had a reputation for being a pest, the kind of player who got inside your head while also slowing down your game. Mario had to adjust constantly, using his intelligence and skill to escape checks, protect the puck, and keep plays alive. It wasn't about fighting, it was about patience, control, and staying one step ahead. That made Kasparaitis especially irritating. He forced Mario to expend energy just surviving instead of playing freely. One memorable example of their rivalry came during the Penguins' playoff runs in the late 1990s, when Kasparaitis played for the New York Rangers. In one game, every time Mario touched the puck, Kasparaitis was right there, trying to disrupt his flow. Even when Mario managed to slip past him, Kasparaitis was quick to retaliate with a shove, a grab, or a well-timed interference. Fans often noticed Mario's frustration in those moments, but he never let it control him. He adapted, finding new ways to move, using clever passes, and still creating scoring chances for himself and his teammates. What made Kasparaitis so memorable wasn't that he was a superstar, he wasn't, but that he represented the type of opponent Mario hated most: relentless, irritating, and impossible to ignore. He tested not only Mario's physical abilities, but also his mental focus and patience. Every shift became a small battle, every goal earned with extra effort. While Kasparaitis wasn't the player Mario truly hated the most, he was certainly a thorn in his side, a constant reminder that even the greatest players must deal with relentless annoyance on the ice. These challenges made Mario's achievements even more impressive, showing that skill alone isn't enough. You need patience, focus, and the ability to outsmart opponents who thrive on disruption. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this deep dive into Mario Lemieux's toughest rivals, take a second to hit that like button. It really helps us bring more behind-the-scenes NHL stories straight to you. Number 3. Ulf Samuelsson. Ulf Samuelsson was one of the most feared defensemen of his era, not because he was flashy or scored highlight reel goals, but because of the way he played the game. Known for his brutal knee-on-knee hits, heavy checks, and relentless physical play, Samuelsson had a reputation for targeting the league's most skilled players. For Mario Lemieux, who relied on speed, skill, and precision to dominate the ice, facing Samuelsson was never easy. Every time a Mario touched the puck, he knew Samuelsson would be there, ready to disrupt, intimidate, and slow him down. It wasn't just the physical pain of being hit, it was the mental challenge of staying calm and focused while someone constantly tried to throw you off your game. Throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s, Samuelsson was a constant obstacle for the Penguins. His hits could stop a play in its tracks, and his aggressive style frustrated even the most patient and skilled players. Lemieux, who valued clean, intelligent hockey, saw players like Samuelsson as a test of both skill and character. Samuelsson represented everything Lemieux despised about obstruction and cheap tactics. He forced Mario to think 2 steps ahead, to anticipate the interference, and to adjust his game in ways he didn't usually have to against other opponents. One example of Samuelsson's style came during a playoff series where Lemieux and the Penguins faced Samuelsson's team. Every shift seemed to include a hit or a push, and the referees often let him play on, making Mario's job even harder. Fans watching could see Mario's patience being tested. He had to protect the puck more, rely on his teammates for support, and stay mentally sharp to avoid being injured or losing focus. Despite the annoyance and danger, Mario didn't let it stop him from performing at the highest level. He continued to create scoring chances, make perfect passes, and lead his team even when Samuelsson tried to make every play a fight or a battle. Off the ice, Samuelsson's presence also added tension to games. The Penguins players knew he would target star players like Lemieux, and opponents used him to slow down the fastest, most talented forwards. For Mario, it was a constant mental battle, knowing that every rush, every puck touch, and every scoring chance could be disrupted by Samuelsson's relentless physicality. This made every success against him feel even more rewarding because it wasn't just about skill, it was about enduring pressure, staying composed, and outsmarting a player who thrived on intimidation. While Mario never publicly said he hated Ulf Samuelsson, anyone who watched the Penguins play in that era could feel the tension. Samuelsson was exactly the type of opponent who tested Mario's patience, skill, and determination at every turn. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't celebrated, but he left a mark on the game and on Lemieux's experience. Facing Samuelsson forced Mario to rise above obstruction, focus on his intelligence, and prove that skill and composure could overcome even the nastiest challenges in hockey. Number 2, NHL referees and league officials. Mario Lemieux wasn't just frustrated by opponents on the ice. Sometimes his biggest battles were with the referees and league officials themselves. Throughout his career, Mario publicly criticized the NHL for allowing what he called clutch and grab hockey. This style of play let defenders hold, grab, and obstruct skilled players without any real penalty. For a player like Lemieux, whose game relied on speed, timing, and creativity, this was infuriating. Every time he tried to make a clean play, he risked being slowed down, interfered with, or even injured, while the referees turned a blind eye. It was more than unfair. It felt like the game was stacked against the very players who made it exciting. The frustration wasn't just casual complaining, it reached a breaking point in 1997. At that time, Mario shocked the hockey world by announcing his temporary retirement. While injuries played a role, he also cited his growing disillusionment with the way the league handled obstruction. He felt that the NHL wasn't protecting its stars, and it was turning games into battles of brute force rather than skill. Fans, teammates, and commentators all understood that Mario's criticism was rooted in a desire to see hockey played at its highest level. He wasn't whining. He wanted the game to be fair, and he wanted talented players to be able to shine without being constantly impeded. Throughout his career, this frustration shaped how Mario approached every game. He would often talk to referees before and during matches, trying to get them to pay attention to illegal holds or interference. Even when calls didn't go his way, he rarely let it completely distract him from his performance. Yet the constant struggle against officials and rules that didn't protect skilled players added a layer of stress to his career. Every shift became more than just a play. It was a test of patience, focus, and composure. For fans, it was clear that Mario held deep resentment toward the league's oversight. Interviews and press conferences frequently showed his irritation, though he always spoke with intelligence and thoughtfulness. It wasn't personal against referees individually. It was about the system that allowed obstruction and cheap tactics to go unpunished. In his mind, the game could be better, cleaner, and more exciting if the NHL enforced rules that protected skill rather than encouraged rough, uncontrolled play. Facing opponents is part of any athlete's job, but facing the system itself is something else entirely. For Mario, the referees and league officials represented a constant challenge, one that tested his patience and determination off the puck as much as on it. It's one thing to beat a player on the ice, but it's another to fight against a system that makes the game harder for you. This ongoing struggle added a layer of frustration that no star player should have to endure. It's part of why Mario's career, even at its highest peaks, was never just about skill, but also about resilience and mental toughness. Number 1, Carrie Fraser, referee. If there was one moment in Mario Lemieux's career where his anger boiled over in full view of the world, it involved referee Carrie Fraser. On April 5, 1994, during a tense playoff game, Mario was penalized for a call he felt was completely unfair. In an instant, frustration and rage took over. He charged at Fraser, shouting and gesturing, and had to be physically restrained by teammates and officials. The confrontation was so intense that Mario was ejected from the game. This wasn't just another penalty or another rough shift. It was a rare, explosive display of emotion from a player usually calm, composed, and focused. For Mario, in that moment, Carrie Fraser represented everything he hated about unfair officiating. Fraser wasn't a villain in the traditional sense. He was one of the league's most respected referees, known for controlling games with authority. But on this particular night, Mario felt personally targeted. The call didn't just slow down the game, it disrupted his team's rhythm and threatened a crucial playoff victory. For a competitor like Lemieux, who thrived under pressure and demanded fairness on every play, it was intolerable. What made it even more frustrating was that he had dealt with similar situations countless times. Fraser was simply the referee at the wrong place at the wrong time, and Mario's boiling frustration finally erupted. This incident went beyond a normal in-game disagreement. Teammates later described it as shocking because Mario rarely let his emotions take over like that. Fans in the arena and watching on TV could see a side of him that was rarely displayed. Raw, passionate, and unfiltered. The moment humanized Lemieux, showing that even the greatest players have breaking points. moments when frustration becomes impossible to contain. While he usually handled challenges with intelligence and skill, Carrie Fraser had struck a nerve. Even after the incident, Mario spoke about it with honesty, never hiding that he had felt wronged. It wasn't personal hatred in the long term. He respected Fraser as an official, but in that instant, it was as close to true, visible hate as anyone would ever see from him. The outburst highlighted how much Mario valued fairness, consistency, and respect on the ice. It also reminded fans that even legends, who appear untouchable and composed, are still human, capable of intense emotion when provoked. Carrie Fraser became a symbol of every referee or official who, in Mario's eyes, allowed unfair play or disrupted the natural flow of hockey. That single incident remains one of the most talked about moments in NHL history, capturing the rare intensity of Mario Lemieux's fury. For a player usually defined by skill, grace, and leadership, his confrontation with Fraser showed that even the greatest can be pushed to their limits. For one night, Carrie Fraser became the face of that limit. Mario Lemieux's career wasn't just about incredible goals, championship wins, or record-breaking stats. It was also shaped by the people who pushed him, challenged him, and at times drove him to frustration. From legends like Wayne Gretzky to agitators, pests, and even referees, each rivalry revealed a different side of Mario: the focused competitor, the frustrated human, and the resilient superstar. These battles, both on and off the ice, made his achievements even more remarkable. They remind us that greatness isn't just about talent. It's about patience, perseverance, and rising above challenges. And that's the story of the 6 players and figures Mario Lemieux hated the most. If you enjoyed this deep dive into his career, make sure to like and subscribe, and check out our next video where we uncover more behind-the-scenes stories of hockey's biggest legends.